Hey guys, welcome back to the Breakfast Club. So, as the others have brought up a topic for the rest of us to respond to, and right away I apologize for not responding to many of them. Once again, real life got into the way, and it kind of is getting in the way of this right now, which is why I'm trying to make this quick. Um, I'm going to present my own particular question for the group to respond to, and I hope to get some interesting answers because it's one that's been on my mind lately. My question is this: at what point do we stop re-examining something? See, one thing I've always held to is that we should constantly keep re-evaluating, you know, what we hold to be true. Our knowledge, our beliefs, cultural norms, things like that. Because as anyone who's taken a cursory look at, the history of our knowledge has seen, we have a much higher percentage of getting things wrong than we do getting things right. We usually think that things happen one way or that this one particular thing is true. And then later on, we get some new evidence that challenges that particular position. And then we're like, oh, no, it was this instead. And so, in general, it tends to be a good idea to keep re examining things that we hold to be quote unquote sacred or things that we hold to be, paramount. But sometimes I wonder if there comes a point where you don't have to re examine things anymore, or the things that you keep finding out only reinforce what you've already held. Let me give some examples. Let's take probably the most tested theory in science right now, which would be the theory of evolution. It has gone through a few tweaks, and I hesitate to say revisions because that makes people think, oh, you completely changed it. No, not really. It's just our understanding of the particular theory. Our ways of explaining it have gotten better over time with new evidence. But, with new knowledge, comes new ways of forming the model that theory is based around. At some point, however, all the new evidence that keeps coming up is only reinforcing what was already discovered. So even though it's good to keep constantly reevaluating it, the core tenets of that theory pretty much remain the same. So, hoping to find something that completely throws it away not only is looking far less likely, it's going to take something miraculous to be able to completely turn that around, some completely new, unfathomed point of knowledge. Now, granted, I'm bringing up something that has to do with science, which, well, I hesitate to use the term hard facts, but it's as close to hard facts as you're going to get. Because even in science, you deal with probabilities. You're dealing with, percentages. You're like, this is most likely, not, oh, this is definitive. But it's as close to definitive as we're going to get. Once you start talking about philosophy, once you start talking about ideology, now you're getting into an even murkier area. Now you're getting to even grayer areas. And this is the type of thing that's making me wonder, how often should we re-examine something? Now, with something that's more of a gray area, you can obviously state that, well, since, when it comes to philosophy and when it comes to morality, when it comes to cultural norms, things like that, now you're dealing with something that's subjective. And therefore, you're always going to be able to re-examine it and look at it from a different angle and come up with some new truth or some new observation that somebody else hasn't really noticed before. But I think even then, there comes a point where we're like, okay, we've pretty much agreed that this is it, and we've pretty much been on that stance for a very long time. Like, no matter how many times you re-examine it, the only new thing you can come up with is like just some new way of framing it or a new way of applying it, but it more or less remains the same. We're not necessarily going against it anymore. We're not necessarily saying, oh, this doesn't hold up, or it's outdated, or it's just simply wrong. Certain philosophies are like that. What becomes even more interesting is when you re-examine something that has already been rejected or already been held to be amoral or, wrong in some way. And yet you will find people who will go back to it and go, no, it's true, it's right, it's exact. I'm pretty sure we can come up with examples these days where that's happening again. At what point do we, say that, okay, we're done with this. Re-examining it doesn't make any sense. Should we ever get to that point? Should we get to the point where things should be re-examined? That's my question. That's the quandary that I have for the group. Is there such a thing as a philosophy or an ideology that we should no longer look at and try to re-examine to see if there's any merit to it? One last thing, real quick, because I've already reached the 5-minute mark. I am pretty sure at some point the term free speech is going to come up, and I really need to throw this out right now before anything else happens. And I'll go into it further in my response to this next week. Using the term free speech as an argument for constantly re-examining something, I honestly don't think really holds up, simply because the term itself, for one thing, is only supposed to be beholden to just governments itself. But even if we decide to expand it to general discourse, and I don't necessarily think that's wrong, using it as just this de facto answer to, oh, well, everything should be discussed no matter what, it's not, a get out of jail free card, so to speak. It's basically just saying that anything should be discussed under the sun. That in itself is not wrong. What is wrong is assuming that stating that automatically frees whatever you're saying from any form of criticism. After all, when you are re-examining something, you are not just bringing it up saying that, see, this is good, therefore let's accept it. That in itself is going to be challenged, and rightfully so. It should be challenged to find out if it holds up or not, no matter what the ideology is. And if it holds up, great. If it doesn't, toss it aside until I guess the next round, which is what this question is about. Should there even be a next round? So I just wanted to put that out there before we go any further. So yeah, that's my question to the group. At what point do we stop bringing something back up for re-examination? And should we ever reach that point? That's it. Catch you guys later.